And good afternoon. You're listening to Ken Hudnall. This is the Ken Hudnall Show. Coming to you from our studios right here in exciting El Paso, Texas. Gateway to the Old West and the most haunted city in the country. Well, today is September the 15th, 258th day of the year. 107 days remain to the year is over with. Holidays and observances. Make a hat day. Whether it's through felting or knitting or crocheting or sewing, give it a shot and make a hat for yourself or make one as a gift. Greenpeace Day. Make everyday changes into your life to help preserve the planet or volunteer with or donate to Greenpeace. World Afro Day. National Cheese Toast Day. National Double Cheeseburger Day. National Online Learning Day. Unlock a world of knowledge from your computer. It's like having a library and a classroom and a mentor right in your pocket. National Linguini Day and a National Dot Day. Based on Peter Reynolds' book, The Dot. Dot Day is all about getting creative and letting your inspiration guide you to craft and create new things. National Felt Hat Day. National Cream de Menthe Day. National Custom Framing Day. Butterscotch Cinnamon Pie Day. National Tackle Kids Cancer Day. International Day of Democracy. National Africa Civility Day. National Neonatal Nurses Day. National Google.com Day. And a National Inclusion Week. And National Neonatal Nurses Week. Red Valley. Fiesta de San Pacho. That goes on through October 5th. It's a celebration that fills the street of Quibdó with music and dance and color. Honor St. Francis of Assisi. Blends Catholic tradition with Afro-Colombian culture. It's a very unique celebration. National Jeans for Jeans Day. Heritage Open Day. Healthcare Environmental Services Week. National Coding Week. Biscuits and Gravy Week. I can get behind that one definitely. Sexual Health Week. National Drive Electric Month. National Forensic Science Week. Small Pet Rodent Awareness Week. Hispanic Heritage Month. National Mitochondrial Disease Week. National Construction Appreciation Week. Professional Care Workers Week. Thinking of You Week. National Parent Teacher Home Visits Week. And Housekeepers Week. Famous people born on this date, the one and only Tommy Lee Jones and William Howard Taft. Well, from holidays observances, let's see what's in the news. The Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin's transgender roommate, it turns out, according to a relative, hates conservatives and Christians. The trans roommate of the alleged assassin was adamant. He's a 22-year-old, hadn't been charged, and whose name hadn't been released by authorities yet, was in a romantic relationship with the suspect, Tyler Robinson. According to that relative, she said he's in the process of transitioning from male to female, which means we're dealing with some folks who managed to stretch the boundaries between what they think and what it actually is. She said a relative began to act differently when he turned 18, said he developed a hatred of Christians and conservatives. He wasn't raised that way, but over the years became detached and radicalized. Been getting progressively worse the last year or two. Well, the shooting of Charlie Kirk has opened up a movement that it's going to be a long time getting back under control. The Charlie Kirk show is still going on. In fact, Vice President Vance is going to host an episode of the show. And the folks are still taking sides. A man was arrested for a sickening act at the Charlie Kirk Memorial outside Turning Point headquarters in Phoenix. He trampled the Goring Memorial into the dirt. News cameras were rolling as the man walked through the memorial, kicking over items including flowers and vases and flags. One mourner gathered at the memorial stepped in to try to stop him, and a man in a blue polo shirt seen yanking the man out of the memorial and throwing him to the ground. The alleged vandal was identified as a 19-year-old Ryder Corral. A video of his arrest, he appears to be wearing a shirt similar to the one worn by the man suspected of assassinating Kirk. It's, and from everything that's come to light, it's fairly clear Tyler Robinson wasn't by himself in the assassination. In fact, one of the intercepted emails, he'd made reference to somebody picking up the gun he had hidden. Well, people are still putting their job at risk, stating their opinions. School resource officer has been removed after an unacceptable post about the Charlie Kirk assassination. This is in an affluent suburb of New York. School resource officer was pulled from her post over inappropriate social media comments. Screenshot of several social media posts from school resource officer Tanisha Blanche, employed by the Westchester County Police Department, assigned to Summers Intermediate School in Westchester County, began circulating online this week. In the post, she appeared to mock the death of conservative leader. One of her alleged social media posts, along with a video of Kirk, read, well, that white sniper was overqualified when you put a hole in your neck. Comments like that are not needed, especially with someone who works with our children. Well, Kash Patel is in the crosshairs, despite President Trump's support. Former Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey, once President Trump's top pick to lead the FBI, is going to be sworn into a new power-sharing role with the Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino. Even in a situation like we have going on right now, politics rears its ugly head. FBI grabbed 2 men for allegedly putting an incendiary device underneath a Fox affiliate news vehicle. This is in Salt Lake City. The suspects, Undeed Nasir, 58, and Adil Justice Ahmad Nasir, 31, were facing multiple charges, including a threat of terrorism, possessing weapons of mass destruction, and possessing explosive devices. The device was found on Friday, determined to be a very real bomb. Officials said the device had been lit, but it actually failed to function. And the news vehicle in question was parked next to an occupied building. Well, with the bounds of civilization becoming a little loose, shall we say, crime has threatened a number of popular tourist destinations. Businesses are pleading for help. In fact, business owners in the New England college town are close to a breaking point as crime affects its downtown, potentially bringing trouble for students, parents, and leaf-peeking tourists in the area. Burlington, Vermont, home of the University of Vermont, said they're working on new strategies to combat crime in the city's downtown, where business owners have raised concerns about graffiti and shoplifting and very open drug use. The mayor, Emma Mulvaney Stanek, noted there's no simple solution. She's argued that actually a heavier police presence could undermine progress, which is kind of silly. But she is a dyed-in-the-world Democrat, and this is a Democrat-leaning town, and the Democrats are known for being soft on crime. Well, preliminary data has shown that Chicago public school enrollment has fallen to historic lows. In fact, enrollment dipped further than it did last year. Chalkbeat analyzed preliminary data of the district's enrollment ahead of September 15th, when the district releases the official count. The outlet reported that data, which is available on CPS school profiles, shows a decline in the number of English language learners and black students. Of course, the powers that be are trying to keep that under wraps. Well, the View co-host is admitted to being scared. They were interviewing Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor, and she was asked about Trump seeking a third term. And Hostin claimed that Sonny Hostin is the co-host. Claimed that Sotomayor's answer whether Trump could get a third White House term disturbed her. So the justice told the host the 22nd Amendment prevented him from seeking a third term. She did note that had never been tested. And to Hostin, that was an ominous statement. She said it scared her. If Trump ran and got reelected for a third term, I think this country would come apart at the seams. Well, controversial British punk rap artist Rob Violin has appeared to revel in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Calls for the slain father of two to rest in peace. At a concert in Amsterdam on Saturday, he said, "I want to dedicate this next one to an absolute piece of fecal matter of a human being." And it's things like that are keeping the pot stirred, so to speak. Well, Rivet Industries' Dave Mara, so Silicon Valley lost its way. And he's now trying to defend those who build and protect our country. He says the woke mind virus nearly brought America to its knees. He said he watched the woke mind virus be conceived, gestated, born, and turned into an unruly teenager. It's almost brought about the demise of our country. Now, as CEO of Rivet Industries, a defense technology company, just secured a $195 million contract with the U.S. Army. And Mara says he's determined to redirect innovation away from Silicon Valley's cultural obsessions and back toward the people that build and defend our country. Well, there's still a lot of questions about the Charlie Cook assassination. And a lot of people who should be trying to calm things down are actually stirring the pot. Well, Irina Zarutska, the Ukrainian refugee who was murdered on the train, her killing exposed the GOP split on possible federal intervention. The Senator Thom Tillis, Republican of North Carolina, warned he'd have a problem if the White House decided to focus its attention on his state as scrutiny grows on Democratic policies and their connection to crime. Irina Zarutska was a Ukrainian refugee killed in Charlotte, North Carolina last month while taking public transportation. And the suspect, DeCarlos Brown, had previously been arrested 14 times for being arrested and charged with murder. But as every time he was arrested, he was let out. The president has made the comment on numerous occasions, blood's on the hands of Democrats who refuse to put bad people in jail. And Attorney General Pam Bondi, who directed Justice Department prosecutors to federally prosecute Brown, contended that Zarutska's horrific murder is a direct result of failed soft-on-crime policies that put criminals before innocent people. And it would seem that she is absolutely correct. Well, Trump files immigration crackdown after a Cuban national charged in Dallas committed a murder with a machete. The killing of Chandramuli Nagamalalia in Dallas is a terrible crime, the result of immigration enforcement failures. The victim was 37 years old. I'm sorry. The killer was 37-year-old Yordanis Cobos Martinez, a Cuban national with a history of arrest in the U.S. President Trump says the crime was carried out by an illegal alien from Cuba who should have never been in our country. He allegedly attacked the victim with a machete at a downtown motel, stabbing and beheading him in front of his wife and son. Witnesses say the violence began after a dispute over a broken washing machine and a cleared language barrier. Archaeologists have made a significant discovery near a biblical pool while Jesus was said to have healed a blind man. Archaeologists have discovered an ancient dam in Jerusalem's city of David, not far from the body of water where Jesus famously healed a blind man. Officials note that a wall was recently found during excavations near the pool of Siloam within the Jerusalem Walls National Park. This pool, rediscovered in 2004, existed as a basin fed by the Gihon Spring. The Gospel of John recounts the testimony of a blind man who was healed by Jesus at that pool. It's interesting that archaeology is starting to confirm a lot of what was written in the Bible. Well, Jasmine Crockett doesn't know how to stay out of the news. She's now likening ICE to slave patrols. She dismisses the idea of migrant crime. She claims white supremacists commit murders at up to 5 times the rate of illegal immigrants. Now, I don't know how she identifies a white supremacist other than the fact that that individual might in fact be white. She was being interviewed on MSNBC by Ali Velshi and said, as somebody who understands history, when I see ICE, I see slave patrols. She recently referred to a murdered young woman, Kaylee Hamilton, age 20, who was sexually assaulted and strangled to death by an illegal immigrant in MS-13 as a random dead person during a Wednesday House hearing. And then she went on to another rant about minimizing migrant crime. When the criminals come for her, she may have a different attitude, but then again, you never know. Well, cannabis is on the rise among pregnant women despite there being serious fetal risk. And it's the use is only getting wider. Well, Sydney Sweeney, Lainey Wilson, and Selena Gomez have led star arrivals at the Emmys 2025 red carpet. It's at the Peacock Theater. It's the 77th Emmy Awards. You know, a lot of these so-called stars have joined in a boycott of Israeli cinema. They can't see anything except how badly Hamas is being treated. The mere fact Hamas is a terrorist organization is, to their minds, is irrelevant. There's over 3,900 actors who have joined in this boycott. Now, when Hamas comes for them, we'll see how they think. Well, a vigil for Charlie Kirk held in the alleged gunman's Utah hometown has drawn hundreds of mourners. That took place last night in the Utah hometown of the alleged gunman Tyler Robinson. The organizer, Jordan Hess, told the crowd he was deeply moved by their attendance. He said the event was organized to celebrate who we are as Americans and to mourn. We gather today not as Democrats or Republicans, not as left or right, not as different races or believers of different religions, but as citizens of the greatest, most enduring experiment of self-government the world has ever known. He said the vigil was about mourning Kirk's life. He said the political assassination wasn't just the taking of life, it's the attempted murder of a dialogue. And as my wife keeps saying, if you have to shoot the person with the megaphone, you've lost. Well, an ancient estate tied a group in the Bible has been unearthed with fascinating treasures. A 1,600-year-old estate connected to the ancient Samaritans, a group depicted in the Bible, has been uncovered in Israel. The discovery was announced on Facebook on the 2nd of September. The estate was excavated in Kafir Qasim city in the central region of the country. The estate's remains belong to the long-running Samaritan community, which thrived from the 4th century to late in the 7th century. The estate's part of Kirbet Kafir Hatta archaeological site. It's considered to be the birthplace of Menander of Samaria, a disciple of Simon Magus. Magus is mentioned in the book of Acts, described in the Bible as being one of Christianity's first converts, though he was later rebuked by Peter for trying to bribe the apostles. Well, NASA's at a crossroads. President Trump going to end the lackluster performance by refocusing and exploring space in a move to beat China. Since it's been founded in 1958, NASA stood as a symbol of American ingenuity and ambition. Came of age in the Cold War, made history by achieving what many believed was impossible, landing the first American on the moon. This marked the height of the U.S. leadership in space. Well, the Abraham Accords are still pointing the way to peace in the Middle East. That's a historic Israeli-Arab alliance, and it's even survived Hamas attacks. Yeah. Jay Leno was interviewed, and he says, in his opinion, Kirk's murder was the death of free speech, which goes along with what my wife's been saying. Well, let's see if there's anything else worth addressing. Well, there have been a lot of interesting stories about various activities. And I keep coming back to ghosts and hauntings. It's been one of my favorite topics over the years. In fact, for 20 years, I did ghost tours here in El Paso. Even took people down in the tunnels. There are 900 miles of long-forgotten tunnels underneath this town. And you never know what you're going to find. But we're going to start out with a story that took place at Carmel by the Sea in California. And the La Playa Hotel, which I had a chance to visit once or twice when I lived in California. And at first glance, you'd never guess this sprawling mansion was actually a haunted hotel. But then again, things never really start out that way. Ever since it was built in 1905, the La Playa has been known as one of the most elegant places on the coast, home to Christopher Jorgensen and chocolate heiress Angela Girardelli. They lived happily there for years, but eventually left the residence after tragedy struck in 1936. And when they did leave their home, it became the La Playa Hotel. Well, the hotel's got a romantic ambiance, but once in a while you get a taste of melancholy alongside that elegantly love-filled vibes. Rumor has it the melancholy is because of what happened at that venue all those years ago. Now, the La Playa Hotel is one of the largest mansions in the area. It's known for its breathtaking orange Spanish-style roofing and elegant large rooms. Got a striking garden patio, unbelievable views of the ocean, and a massive array of different rooms made to feel like a home away from home. Now, the mansion, as I said earlier, was originally designed and built as a gift from Chris Jorgensen to his wife. So it does make sense that the place it retained its romantic reputation. And that's why it's become known as a famous artist retreat, and why many folks use it as a wedding venue. But as I said, it does have stories of being haunted. When Chris Jorgensen made his estate, he wanted it to be a forever home for his wife, Angela. But unfortunately, tragedy marked the beach in 1936. Angela's niece, Alida, came for a visit. 3 of them went out for a swim in the ocean. And a freak wave came and drug Angela's niece into the undertow. She tried to swim to shore, but she never made it out of the ocean. The couple was horrified and could no longer bear to stay there, which is a shame since her niece's ghost has frequently been seen there. Visitors say that they see a young, thin woman wearing period clothing walking along the shoreline. Of course, whenever they try to approach her, she vanishes. And though she didn't die at the La Playa, Angela Girardelli still chooses to linger around the place of her youth. Seems like she just couldn't leave her beloved niece behind, or that she just seemed to want to stay around with her. Sometimes visitors see the appearance of 2 feminine figures at the beach, often looking like they're about to run into the ocean. Maybe Angela and her niece are enjoying their time together on moonlit nights. Angela usually shows herself as an older lady in a period dress, and at the same time, Alida looks like she's younger in a swimsuit. Well, the beach might be Angela's favorite place, but it's not the only place she's been spotted. According to visitors, she can be seen spending her days walking through the terrace or taking a stroll in her gardens. Sometimes you see her with her niece in tow, still wet from being in the ocean. And most of the sightings of ghosts on the property happen outside the hotel, but that doesn't mean you can't have something supernatural happen inside as well. The bedrooms in the hotel are also known for being haunted. They're not at the same level as the outdoors. Inside the building, visitors often feel a feminine presence in their rooms. It's usually believed to be Angela. If she takes a liking to somebody, the presence often feels unusually warm and welcoming, much like a friend telling you to make yourself at home. Sometimes you even smell her perfume floating by. And some younger children have claimed to see a woman in mirrors behind them, but they never quite seem to be scared of her. If anything, they found it to be a curious quirk, and many of them, not realizing what it could be that they're seeing, look forward to it. Well, if you ever wanted to go to a haunted hotel but were worried about actually being spooked by a ghost, then the typical options you would have would be limited. The Playa Hotel might be one of California's only heavily haunted places where you can spend a night and see a ghost without being terrified half to death. One thing that guests find very pleasing about their stay there is that the hauntings are real. But there's never a feeling of worry that you'll be harmed by a ghost. If anything, you might have the experience feel more like a strange occurrence rather than something truly frightening or traumatic. And if you always wanted to spot a glimpse of a ghost but never felt sure you'd be able to handle seeing one when you wake up, maybe the La Playa Hotel's for you. Check it out. Well, from Carmel by the Sea, let's go to Holly, Michigan. The Holly Hotel. Now, in Michigan, there are plenty of places that have tales of tragedy and terror. After all, Detroit's many abandoned buildings and haunted regions are somewhat legendary among the Rust Belt. However, few have as strong a reputation as the Holly Hotel. It's actually one of the most haunted spots in the state. Now, the Holly Hotel was the site of two major fires, both of which caused casualties. During the 100-plus years as a hospitality hotspot, it's also served as a home to people from all walks of life. As it turns out, many of the people who spent their years in the hotel during their lives decided to stay on long after they died. The very heart of the city of Holly, this tiny hotel looks like a classic Victorian house with a brick exterior. Houses a nice little restaurant, a nice lobby, and dozens of rooms upstairs. But there is a certain amount of sadness associated with the design. Now, the hotel's burned to the ground twice, with many of the rooms being entirely obliterated. What stands at the site now is a recreation of the 1913 model from when the Holly Hotel was a major hotspot during Prohibition. In recent years, the dozens of rooms that once made up part of the inn have been converted into historic assets. Although the hotel portion of this venue may be defunct, it does still remain alive and well as a restaurant, a comedy club, an event venue, and certainly a ghost hunting spot. Before it was renamed the Holly Hotel, this venue was known as the Hearst Hotel. And as you can guess, it was named after the hotel's founder, Mr. Hearst. He was notorious for loving a good cigar and for walking through the hallways, inspecting everything and anything he could find. Seems like he still has a considerable penchant for his inspections. Staff members claim they get a whiff of cigars from time to time. When the hotel was undergoing renovation, Mr. Hearst was also blamed for things going missing or flying off the shelves. According to historical records, he did not like loud noises. And of course, the man of the house always wants to make an appearance as well. People have described him as tall with a top hat and a fine smoking jacket. And in most cases, when he's seen, he appears a little bit miffed. Now, Miss Nora Kane was a staple in the Holly Hotel back when it was an inn. She was a lady who loved being the hostess with the mostess. Everybody in Holly loved her and knew her. And it seems she loved the hotel as well, since she never really left. Now, like Mr. Hearst, Nora's ghost is an olfactory phantom. You can always tell she's near when you smell the woman's perfume floating by. Of course, she was also a massive fan of music back in the day. And not being one to give up on her passion, you can still hear her playing music in one of the guest rooms. Like her former boss, Nora Kane materializes from time to time. However, she doesn't seem fully realistic. People described her as beautiful and lithe and youthful, most often wearing an elegant floral dress. What gives the folks the clue that something's wrong is when they realize she doesn't have any legs. It seems like haunting the Holly Hotel is a family affair, which is rather tragic if you think about it. Nora's daughter died while she was working in a hotel restaurant. I know she was only 9 years old at the time. The youngster still hung around the kitchen alongside her mother. Now, nobody knows her name, but they do know she loves to create chaos, much to the cook's dismay. She's known for making things disappear and reappear, and playing pranks on cooks and causing items to fling themselves off kitchen shelves. Also known for running up and down the stairs. Well, during a seance in the 1990s, she decided to make an appearance. She's got red hair, a little giggle, and a generally benevolent, if not mischievous, attitude. Almost everybody working at the Holly Hotel has heard her notoriously contagious laughter at one time or another. Now, not all the ghosts of the Holly Hotel make much sense in terms of the hotel's history. One of the most bizarre members of the hotel's ghost crew is the phantom of a Native American man. People who've seen him wandering in the restaurant claim he looks as real as ever did, and even mistook him for a reenactor. They usually realize something is not quite right when they look down and realize he didn't have any feet either. Nobody knows who he was in life or why he's still there. Doesn't speak. Doesn't seem to really portray any emotion. He's just there, and that might be what makes him so unsettling. The commonly sighted ghost isn't human at all. It's a small rat terrier dog known as Leona. She doesn't bite. She's known for brushing against people's legs and barking loudly and running up the stairs, often chasing the little girl ghost in the kitchen. Well, the Holly Hotel is not what most people would expect to see in a haunted hotel. It's lively and fun, but at the same time, you can no longer book a room there for an overnight experience. But that doesn't mean you can't come face to face with the ghost. This hotel has a ton of activity during both the day and the night, which is why many restaurant and club patrons can still share their stories. And if you aren't up for renting a room but still want to dine with the undead, certainly the Holly Hotel's your perfect choice. Then in Helmsley, York, United Kingdom, we have the Black Swan Hotel. It's not your father's Motel 6, I assure you. With all the historical turmoil throughout Europe's history, it's no surprise anyone at certain hotels would find themselves haunted by ghostly denizens from centuries past. And as many Britons know, the Black Swan Hotel is a chain of hotels throughout the United Kingdom. Now, of course, not all Black Swan hotels are haunted, but the one in York has earned a reputation for being a paranormal hotspot among ghost hunters. Ever since it was first erected in 1838, the coaching house has been a major meeting place for travelers and lonely hearts and people who find themselves lost. Now, the Black Swan's hotel's layout is based on three main houses: a black and white home on the left, a graceful Elizabethan house on the far right, and a Georgian house in the middle. The three houses originated there back in the 1830s, but there very likely is a longer story to this hotel's life than just what we know of the coach houses. According to rumors, the Elizabethan house was the site of a hotel that existed before the current Black Swan. And like most other hotels of its age, the Black Swan Hotel witnessed a steady flow of regulars as well as a lot of drifters. However, one thing that sets the Black Swan apart from most other venues is it's been used as a meeting place for occult groups over the course of several hundred years. A lot of people rightfully believe that some of these groups have affected the overall area. Maybe that's why so many ghosts seem to drift in and out of the hotel's many rooms. One of the most notable ghostly guests in the Black Swan is a man who is seen wearing a bowler hat who sidles up to the bar and sips a glass of whiskey. Appears like he's actually waiting for somebody that never arrives. And after a while, the man's apparition will just fade away with no sign of his long-gone companion even coming into the mix. Hotels are known for being wedding venues. It's no surprise the Black Swan has hosted hundreds of weddings throughout the centuries of existence. Throughout any hotel's existence, there will be at least one or two weddings that go wrong, and these often end up being tragedies that sometimes continue to play out over the years. Right near the bar's fireplace, you might glimpse the apparition of a beautiful young woman looking forlornly into the fire. Nobody knows what her name is, but her white dress suggests she was a bride who may have been left at the altar over 100 years ago. According to the legend, men need to avoid her at all cost. Said if you look her in the eye, you'll go mad. Well, the famous ghost you might see is a young boy dressed in Victorian garb. Like other ghosts, he's not transparent. He's so realistic, a lot of folks mistake him for a period actor as part of the Black Swan's historic ambiance. But he's not. He's actually a real live ghost, or maybe a real dead ghost. The boy's name is Matthew, and he was a pickpocket in life. And these days he still tricks people by picking their pockets and leaving items on their hotel room's desk. Also known for taking items behind the bar. Some things never change, you know. Not all the Black Swan's patrons were law-abiding citizens, of course. One of the most famous ghosts is a highwayman named Jack. In life, he often stayed in the stable yard. The kitchen was built over this area, which led him to haunting the kitchen. People who work there describe him as a tall man with black boots and a black coat. Often can be heard singing songs from days gone by. What he's doing there, we don't know and probably will never know, and who or what he's waiting for probably never showed up. And unlike a lot of other hotels in the area, the Black Swan Hotel carries a tradition of having a pet on premises. That pet is a large black cat named Salem, who's always around the hotel. But that large black cat you see might not be a living pet. Once in a while, a report of a large fluffy cat walking around the hotel's premises surface. For the most part, people never think twice because they assume it's Salem, till they see the cat walk through the wall or vanish into thin air. Some say that seeing a ghost cat's an omen of good news, since he seems to be the hotel's protector. Now, back in the hotel's early days, there was a patron who always used to sit in the wooden chair by the fire. And though his name has been lost to history, everybody knew to avoid sitting in that chair. It was his chair, and he seemed very protective of it. In death, his spirit seems to have a bone to pick with anybody who tries to sit down there. According to local legend, the chair ended up being cursed by the former owner, and he insisted nobody ever sit there except him. And if you believe the rumors, then you need to watch out. Whoever sits in that wooden chair by the fire is bound to have had bad luck sooner rather than later. Anecdotes have linked this chair to tragic accidents, death, as well as broken marriages. And as one individual observed, maybe it's just better to stand. Well, with most of the apparitions linked to the hotel, you get to see the entire body of the being you're interacting with. This particular apparition is a little different simply because nobody's ever seen the full apparition. All we do know is that a pair of legs walks up the stairs right over to the landlord's room. Nobody knows whose legs they are or why the residual haunting keeps leading up there. Like many of the most haunted hotels in the world, visitors love to go to the Black Swan for ghost tours and seances. These visitors also take photos, and when they do, they often see orbs floating in the pictures. And what sets aside the Black Swan is that the orbs don't just appear on camera. Many visitors wake up in the middle of the night, seeing the strange lights hovering above them. Nobody knows who these orbs once were, nor do they know why they're there. Well, York's own Black Swan Hotel has a reputation for being one of the most haunted places in all of Britain. While many hotels with a high haunting reputation tend to have rest-friendly ghosts, this is one place where you should be just fine as long as you look out for the jilted bride or don't sit in that one particular chair. Well, from Britain, let's go to Wales. The Skirrid Mountain Inn in Abergavenny, Monmouthshire, Wales. Now, this inn's claim to fame is deeply rooted in history. According to records, it's the oldest inn in Wales, home to a major battle led by Owen Glyndwr, and a jail notorious for executing inmates who were left there. And as you can only imagine, this beautiful landscape has a very dark history. Even William Shakespeare was said to be inspired by this place's beauty and tragedy. With its 900-year history, it's bound to have a legend or two thrown into the mix. Now, the Scurried Mountain Inn is a 900-year-old stone building that features a large dining room, a lobby, as well as a handful of small rooms. The entire layout is done in an old-world style and happens to overlook the Scurried Mountains, a stunning backdrop. When people first visit the Scurried Mountain Inn's bar area, they often are frightened when they see a noose hanging from one of the main support beams. Macabre as it might be, this is the inn's way of paying homage to the many prisoners who died there. If you go and spend a night in one of its 800 style rooms, be prepared to have a long night with a little sleep. Might even have some ghostly company during the night. When Catholic King James II quashed the Protestant rebellion in the Scurried area, he condemned all the people that rose up against him to death, including the Protestant Duke of Monmouth that was sent to die at the Scurried Mountain Inn since it doubled as a courthouse. A lot of men were condemned for their role in the uprising. The presiding judge at the time hung a noose up by the stairwell and used it to hang people. You can still see the rope marks today. Scarily enough. The condemned spent their last hours in a storage closet right above the pub, where they could listen to others making merry while they awaited their demise. As one could imagine, not everybody went peacefully. On quiet nights, you can actually hear the condemned begging for help. Sometimes it even sounds like a shrill scream. One of the most common hauntings at the Scurried Mountain Inn occurs in a dining room and the individual rooms where guests sleep. Guests are unlucky that you may feel a noose tighten around their necks. And some guests are even worse off, with many of them getting visible rope burns around their throats while enjoying a drink. Clearly, some of the ghosts who are hung are still upset about their fates. If the potential risk of having a noose around your neck isn't scary enough, Room 1 is said to be haunted by a rather violent ghost. Women who have taken a bath in this area have had an experience of being pushed underwater by unseen hands. Well, the fights were real and terrifying to the poor people who experienced them. At one point, a naked woman ran out of her room screaming, "He's trying to kill me." Interestingly enough, Room 1 was allegedly the room where Squire Arnold slept while presiding over the executions. He was a notorious woman hater, and seemed like that reputation continued on into the afterlife. Now, when the men were hung for the uprising, King James II appointed one of the most bloodthirsty men in all the land to preside over it. Judge John Jeffreys, a known sadist who was often accused of seeking out punishment on the innocent just as his own personal pleasure. Jeffreys seems to have decided to make the Scurried his home in the afterlife. People have claimed to see somebody who fits his description skulking around the second floor of the building. Often behaves aggressively, attacking those he deems to be worthy victims. Well, the attack can be anything ranging from a push against a wall to something more sinister. Many people who are sensitive to ghostly phenomena have claimed to have nightmares of a man condemning them to death. Another ghostly resident of the second floor happens to be a close friend of Judge Jeffreys in his life, the actual hangman who killed the prisoners. Unlike Jeffreys, who often appears as a man in a long black robe, the hangman never seems to have a fully human form. People who've seen him claim he looks like a giant black shadow that moves on its own accord. He doesn't look human. People always just know he was a hangman in his life, almost as if he's communicating with them without saying a word. One thing everybody agrees on is you can never shake how unsettling it is to see this phantom. People claim he emits a foreboding, aggressive, and depressing energy wherever he goes. John Crowther was a man who was dealt a bad hand in life. He was low on food and desperate, so he sold a sheep. Unfortunately, he was caught and sentenced to be hung. To make matters worse, he was the last person to die as a result of this type of crime. Many people see a disgruntled man sitting near the bar dressed in 18th century clothing. Still seems displeased about being dead, probably the fact he didn't get the sheep. Fanny Price was one of the Scurried Mountain Inn's most loyal barmaids, and she was a favorite during the early part of the 18th century. Unfortunately, during her time working at the inn, She caught tuberculosis, which was called consumption in those days. Seems like she loved the place so much she didn't want to part with it even when she died. Her coughing can still be heard late at night, and at times people still see her frail figure walking around the hotel's premises. At times people even smell her around the inn. Sometimes she smells like her healthy self, which means you might get a whiff of perfume. Other times you might feel the scent of somebody who's clearly ill nearby. According to staff members, every single room in the Security Mountain Inn is a haunting story. One of the most widespread issues that every room faces is poltergeist activity. Some rooms are famous for having doors open by themselves. Others involve beds that shake. Even more are known for having items fly off the shelves and desks. In most rooms, people have called the front desk saying the sheets pulled themselves off the bed. And it should come as no surprise to anybody that the Security has been the site of several meetings involving people discussing things seemed less than savory. Seems like some of the former guests decided to stick around and keep talking despite the subject at hand and most likely being gone from existence. Some of the quieter corners of the first floor, when the pub's winding down, people often hear disembodied voices talking to one another in a hushed tone. Nobody can ever make out what they're saying, and people try to follow the voices. They disappear once you track them down to a location. And there are a lot of haunted hotels that are excellent places to go for people who want to see ghosts without getting too heavily haunted. These are places with cheerful pasts that involve some lively and lovely, friendly ghosts that live out their afterlife in the idyllic peace they once called home. Looking for a place with a happy ghost, the Scared Mountain Inn is not the place for you, though. Truth be told, this is a haunted hotel that could send a chill up most people's spines, even if they're the type to be bold in most situations. While a lot of folks enjoy their stay without issue, people are extremely sensitive to the paranormal shouldn't attempt to go here. One of the few venues where ghosts have been known to get violent with guests. The more sensitive you are to paranormal activity, the more likely you are to experience something you can't explain. And even so, there have been skeptics who've experienced things as well. So if you go there, stay with a friend and keep an eye out for the weird. You never know what you're going to come across. Well, from Wales, let's go to San Antonio, Texas. This is a stately southern hotel originally known as the Emily Morgan. Recently added to the Doubletree collection of hotels. And though it now has a corporate appearance, the truth is that its checkered history has left it with its fair share of strange happenings and things that go bump in the night. The hotel started its life on the very ground where Mexicans and Texans fought in the Battle of the Alamo. Said the soil is stained with the blood of over 600 soldiers. But unfortunately, the suffering didn't end there. When this building was erected in 1926, it served as the Medical Arts Building, housing over 100 doctors, a morgue, a crematorium, and a fully functional psychiatric unit. When it was finally converted to a hotel in 1984, it became deathly clear that some of the old residents never really left. Emily Morgan San Antonio has a massive Spanish-style vibe and over a dozen floors. Unlike other hotels, this one has a quirk rooted in superstition. Though there is a 14th floor, there is no 13th floor. Purely out of concern for one's luck. Sitting on the top of the skyscraper is an observation tower. Along with a unique floor plan, the hotel's got a bunch of modern amenities that keep it welcoming for living guests, including a pool and a restaurant. But don't let the new goodies fool you. The ghosts here are almost entirely centuries old. Since Emily Morgan was originally a medical center with a psych ward, unsurprising and tragic tales often happen there. Psychiatric center is allegedly located on the 7th floor. So one could only imagine the horrors in these lost souls' minds. Considering the basement once held a morgue and a crematorium, it's not shocking to hear that plenty of paranormal activity has been reported on the lower levels. There are no guest rooms there, just housekeeping and offices. Even so, the staff seems very wary about staying near there. Staff stuck there late at night often experience chills and hear disembodied voices and see a pair of dancing lights that can't be attributed to anything in the building. Well, the seventh floor clearly witnessed some terrible things, which is why it's reputed to be the most haunted floor in the hotel. Most people that sleep there report feeling cold spots and feeling an invisible person brush by them. One might say it's the run-of-the-mill hauntings if it weren't for the fact that people also get a strong medicinal smell wafting in during the middle of the night. Once night falls, the real terror begins, since full-bodied apparitions often make their presence known. No one ever gets a full glimpse of the shadow figures that flit through these halls. Most of the time, it just results in people seeing dark shapes moving independently. Unlike other floors, the ninth floor was known for being a heavy hospital work area. Unlike others, the haunting here are relatively subtle. Drinkers won't enjoy this floor. You might see wine bottles and drinkware fall off tables. Noise might be an issue. Toilet lids are known for slamming themselves repeatedly shut during the night. Also, don't be surprised if you hear the wheels of a gurney rolling down the hall either. And no matter what room you pick on this floor, there's a constant report of the sound of dripping water. Some might call it maddening, especially when they realize it's not coming from any real place. Along with gurney noises, you might also get the glimpse of an old woman in a hospital gown, often seen pacing the halls, appearing as if she's crying. And not too long after she starts pacing, she will vanish. And the 12th floor is rumored to be an operations level, as well as a regular care level in the old medical arts building. As you can guess, some of the doctors and patients continue to walk the halls. Most of them are allegedly people who didn't make it through surgery. And on this floor, people usually hear hospital noises that would seem to be coming from nowhere. Along with the noises is a strong smell of rubbing alcohol, often followed by doors slamming. And in certain rooms, people have reported hearing sinks turn on and off by themselves. And if you're not a fan of surgeons, you definitely don't want to linger around the 14th floor. This floor used to be the hospital surgery center, and the results weren't great. This level is rumored to have a time warp effect, much to the shock of visitors. Visitors regularly report opening their room door only to see a full-scale hospital scene, complete with doctors and surgery failures and gurneys and syringes. When they close the door and open it again, the scene is a normal hospital room. A hotel room. No one knows what happened if you choose to walk through that door. Gettysburg has a similar situation. Maybe one of the most unexplainable ghosts to be part of the Emily Morgan's lore is the ghost bride of the 7th floor. Now, nobody knows the bride's full story, nor would any tale make sense, and after all, the hotel's only been in service since the 80s. No bridal suicides were mentioned in the hotel's history. One thing is certain, her ghostly shrieks wake people up in the middle of the night. And some folks have seen her gazing back at them through hotel mirrors, often looking forlorn. Well, though it's a rare occasion, it still happens every once in a while because the hotel is built on the battlefield. There have been occasional sightings of people dressed in them like members of General Santa Anna's army walking through the lobby or outside the hotel. If you're lucky, you might even see Davy Crockett. Well, on that note, we come to the end of today's show. We'll be back tomorrow, and once again, you'll be listening to stories from yesteryear. Stories of ghosts and hauntings when you're listening to the Ken Hudnall Show. Until then, have a truly great evening.